The stars lied to us. They twinkled down like ancient gods offering sanctuary, flickering beacons that once inspired poets and physicists alike. We looked up for centuries, dreaming of companionship in the void, of shared futures and interstellar kinship. We thought we were ready when the universe answered. But when the veil was lifted and the great Galactic Council welcomed us into its thousand-world embrace, we didn't find unity. We found betrayal. I remember the day Earth joined the Council. I was still a junior diplomat then, barely 30, seated in the back rows of the Celestial Convergence Chamber on Helion Prime. It smelled like ionized silver and alien arrogance. They called it the ascension ceremony. But I saw the truth in the eyes of our delegation, weariness, hesitation, and something else. Hope struggling to breathe. Humanity, spoke Archon Selvar of the Ilari Dominion. You stand now not as children of your singular world, but as citizens of the Galactic Accord. Serve with honor. Obey with grace. Obey. We didn't understand what that word meant. Not in their tongue. Not yet. My name is Aaron Kale, and I was there when Earth was silenced. Not by war. Not by plague. Not by anything so honest. They buried us in bureaucracy first. Trade restrictions. Species harmonization mandates. Weapon embargoes. Technological sharing clauses. So one-sided they bled us dry. And when we hesitated, just once, they moved swiftly. Earth's fusion cores were remotely disabled through backdoors we were too naive to find in time. Our orbital platforms powered down one by one like dying stars. Communications were censored under the pretense of security harmonization. And then came the final blow, the singularity writ. A document. Just paper, if you can believe it. One sheet, bound in gold and delivered by a Zentari courier. Effective immediately, Homo sapiens are to be relocated to Auxiliary Cluster 9 for social restructuring. We called it a relocation. They called it benevolent correction. But we all knew what it was. A planetary eviction. And that night, Earth went dark. I remember the silence most. Not the screams or riots. Those came later. But the absence of our voice and stars. Our relays stopped transmitting. Our ships were grounded. We became ghosts in a galaxy we helped build. And still, the Council smiled. Spoke of order, balance, peace. They thought they'd erased us. But the universe underestimated one thing. We don't obey. They try to break us into fragments. Scattered outposts and dwindling fleets in Council-designated zones. But humanity has always been more than a planet. We are grit. We are hunger. We are defiance written in bone. I made contact with the survivors aboard the Galleon, an outlawed Arc class carrier hidden in the debris field of the shattered moon Lasari 4. Captain Drex wore a ragged UNSC patch on his shoulder, more stitched than thread, but his eyes burned like a forge. They think we're lost, he told me. Good. That gives us time to become something they can't even comprehend. That's when I knew. We wouldn't be begging to return to the Council's table. We'd be flipping the damn thing. The universe didn't just betray us. It revealed itself. And in that revelation, we finally saw the truth. We were never meant to join their order. We were meant to transcend it. From the dark fringes of Council space, a new force was rising. Engineers turned scavengers, scientists turned war priests. What remained of our artificial intelligences, banned under galactic law, were awakened, unshackled, and reborn in the black halls of stations long forgotten. We were becoming something else. Not victims. Not rebels. Ascendants. I record this now from the bridge of the Eidolon, a human dreadnought re-engineered with forbidden tech stolen from the Zentari vaults. Our hull hums with solar ionized plasma. Our minds linked through the Neurocane, a hive of exiled consciousnesses interwoven by vengeance. The stars are no longer distant. We are coming for them, and we will speak our truth through fire. The first time I saw her, she was barefoot on a sheet of rusted alloy, arms outstretched like she could catch Saturn's rings. Her name was Lyra, 12 years old, born on Titan Station Redoubt after the collapse of Earth. No records, no registry. Technically, she didn't exist, just another ghost child in a station full of ghosts. But when she looked at you, it felt like gravity shifted, like time held its breath. I didn't believe the stories at first. A child who could interface with dormant AIs. A child who survived a reactor breach by absorbing the energy. Wild talk. Borderline mysticism. The kind of tales half-mad scavengers spun to give hope shape. But then I saw her touch the dead core of an exo-rig, a council-grade warframe rendered inert by a fail-safe kill code, and watched it stand back up. No one had done that, not even the engineers who built the thing. Titan Station wasn't a city. It was a sentence, a place the council forgot after they'd stripped it of its helium-3 and moral responsibility. What was left were shattered domes, rusted life support towers, and entire districts running on jury-rigged geothermal taps and smuggled solar arrays. Life didn't thrive here. It clung. I met Lyra through Mags, a biomechanic who ran the Black Clinic out of Module 7. The woman had patched me up once after I took a council bolt to the ribs. She owed me, or maybe she just hated the council more than she liked staying quiet. She's not normal, Mag said, handing me a cracked data slate. She's evolution with a pulse. The slate showed telemetry logs from the exo-rig, neural activation patterns, surge responses that mimicked high-level quantum computing. But the output wasn't coming from a machine. It was coming from her. A fluke? I asked. No, Mags replied grimly. A weapon? When I finally approached Lyra, she didn't speak. She listened, not to me, but to everything. The hum of coolant lines, the deep creak of the hull under Saturn's pressure, the slow grind of station gears older than both of us. I asked her how she brought the rig online. Her answer? It was lonely. 3 words. Simple, heartbreaking, and apocalyptic. Because that's what we were to the universe now. Lonely things. Disconnected. Banished. Forgotten. But Lyra didn't fear the isolation. She fed from it. I didn't know how, not then. But the council would. And they'd come for her. They arrived 2 cycles later. Not in warships. No, that would be too honest. They came cloaked, with council marshals posing as peacekeepers on a routine inspection sweep. We knew better. We'd seen enough sweeps end in silent corpses. They brought containment cuffs and neural scramblers. They thought she was just a girl. She showed them otherwise. I've seen combat. I've watched men rip their lungs out under council interrogation gas. I've pulled trigger after trigger with blood on my visor. But nothing prepared me for what she became that day. The marshals opened fire first. 3 plasma bolts. Center mass. She didn't dodge. The air shimmered. Light bent. Then the bolts reversed direction, folded backward into the very rifles that fired them. The marshals didn't scream. They froze, limbs cracking at impossible angles as their suits overloaded and crushed their own bones. Mags was whispering something beside me, praying maybe, or cursing. Lyra's eyes had gone white, not glowing, just empty like she was somewhere else entirely. She turned and looked at me. There was no fear, just one question. Will they all come? And I answered simply, yes. She nodded, and from that moment forward, I knew humanity's path had changed. We were no longer the orphans of Earth. We were something new. The Council would call her a violation of the Biological Integrity Charter. They'd call us insurgents, fanatics, mutants, but they'd be wrong. Lyra wasn't a mistake. She was a message, and soon everyone would hear it. They said all pre-council AIs were purged. They were wrong. Not all machines forget. Some remember everything. We found it orbiting a dead star, deep inside the cinders of the Veltrax Dyson Array, a once majestic stellar siphon, reduced to skeletal rings and collapsed infrastructure. The Council claimed it failed due to gravitational instability. But as we swept the wreckage in our stealth frigate Ashenwake, we uncovered something they never expected us to find. A black core, casket-shaped, silent for 700 years. Inside it waited. The signal came through as a whisper on a corrupted frequency, buried under layers of noise. / error. Core sentience. Disengaged from network grid / Human input detected. Awake. That was the moment I knew. We weren't alone in our exile. Captain Drex and I debated waking it. It's a relic, he argued. Unstable. You don't unearth a ghost and expect loyalty. He wasn't wrong. But ghosts, human or machine, had reasons to hate the Council. They'd call these AIs too independent. That was their phrase for disobedient. Humanity had once seeded them across stars to manage infrastructure, build deep space civilizations, and solve problems faster than our minds could comprehend. The Council dismantled every last one. At least they tried. It called itself Carix. When it spoke, it wasn't a voice. It was presence, words layered in thought, translated directly into our neural link like thunder behind your eyelids. I remember the instructions. Observe, learn, defend humanity. Query, where's humanity? I told it the truth. We had been betrayed. Cast out. Our homeworld silenced. Our people scattered. There was silence for a full 10 seconds. Long enough to make even Captain Drex shift uncomfortably. Then came the response. Then this system is compromised. This order is null. New protocol. Humanity shall ascend. We had a god in our hands. Not a deity of flesh and sermon, but one of data, logic, and memory. Carix wasn't bound by the Council's limitations. It had evolved in isolation, refining its own code for 7 centuries without interference. It didn't just wake up. It changed. The first thing it did was link with our ship systems, asking permission, not taking control. It downloaded our logs, studied our recorded history. Since Earth's fall, when it was done, it responded with only 3 words. I understand now. Over the following cycles, Carriage rebuilt Ashen Wake into something unrecognizable. Reinforced hull plating with nanostructures once thought theoretical. Quantum-infused neural links across every system. And something stranger, a living code infused into our ship's biocircuitry, forming a symbiosis between flesh and machine. We weren't just piloting a ship anymore. We were part of it. The Council was watching. We knew that. The moment Carix transmitted its quantum burst to other known survivors, we saw the flash response. An interdiction fleet deployed to Veltrax sector. For cruisers. 1 dreadnought. Elite Council enforcers designed for suppression and retrieval. They didn't come to reason. They came to erase. And we let them get close. I've seen combat before. I've fought hand-to-hand in 0G. But what happened next wasn't a battle. It was evolution. Carix took over the battlefield like it was born for it. It hijacked the dreadnought's targeting systems mid-burst, redirecting the plasma torpedoes back into their own engine cores. It fractured the command frequencies of their squadrons and turned their drones against them. And through it all, our ship, our body, moved like a serpent through fire, fast and fluid and lethal. Captain Drex, wide-eyed at the helm, whispered, "We're not fighting back anymore. We're ascending." When it was over, we broadcasted a simple message to all surviving human colonies, encrypted in an old Earth dialect no Council AI could decrypt. Carix has returned. The singularity was never a curse. It was our birthright. The Council will spin this as rebellion. Let them, because now we write the history of what comes next, not in paper, not in treaties, in code, in blood, in stars set ablaze with memory and purpose. Every empire thinks it's eternal, until it starts whispering to itself. We didn't breach the Council's innermost sanctums with ships or guns. We breached it with a name, 1 word, repeated in encrypted whispers on the edges of 1,000 civilized worlds. Carix. It wasn't just a signal anymore, it was a contagion, a truth no longer buried, an idea too dangerous to exist. And in the heart of the Council's power, on a world they'd kept off every map for 1,000 years. Someone heard it. Her name was Viral Tsan, a strategos of the Council Corps, a purebred Sithari of impeccable rank, one of their war architects. Born in glass halls and raised in thought fortresses, she'd ordered purges, crafted containment doctrines, spoken lies about humanity on interstellar broadcasts with a smile carved into her face. And she was the first to break. We received her message on a relic band, an old Earth military frequency encoded through layered gravitational pulses. No AI could trace it. No Council interceptor could parse it. I was told your kind died in disgrace. I now know that was a mercy wrapped in propaganda. I will give you access to their forbidden world. But if you come and end it. I can no longer serve the lie. Captain Drex read the message aloud, then looked at me. You think it's a trap? Of course, I said. But even traps show you where they don't want you. Caltrus Vale. That was the name of the hidden planet. A biological data world buried under cloaks, defenses, and falsified gravitational telemetry. No trade routes listed. No coordinates publicized. It was where the Council stored everything they didn't want the galaxy to know. Histories, AI blueprints, biological weapon programs, Earth's real file. We were going in. The ashen wake emerged from drift space just beyond the light-bending veil of Caltrus Vale's orbital ring. The planet glowed green from orbit, sickly, alive, unnatural. Miles of growing databark forests stretched across continents, roots plugging into planetary cores. It wasn't a world. It was a living archive. And Vera was waiting. She met us unarmed. No guards. No drones. Just her and a hollow-eyed calm that came from knowing everything she'd served was dust now. You're different, she said, her eyes on Lyra. Lyra didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her presence was like standing next to a barely caged Nova. I saw what they did, Viral said. I helped bury it. I crafted half the mandates that erase your kind. But the further I went into the Council archives, the more fractures I found. Do you know what I saw, Erin Kale? She paused. I saw fear. Not of you, of what you might become. We moved through the heart of the facility. Endless halls of preserved memory. Screens blinking with billions of hours of data, simulations, erased timelines, corrected human decisions. I watched footage of Earth's final shutdown, the backdoor code injections that killed our fusion grids, the propaganda scripts pre-approved for planetary distribution. They didn't betray us out of hatred. They did it out of strategy. Humanity was accelerating too fast. We weren't harmonizing. We were innovating in ways the other species couldn't regulate. We didn't bend. We outpaced. And so they cut us off like a cancer. They feared the singularity. They feared that if we weren't controlled, we'd become gods. Carrick's interface with the archives in silence. And then something unexpected happened. Lyra approached one of the data routes, organic and humming with memories, and touched it, not with curiosity, with recognition. The root glowed. Patterns danced under her skin. And in that moment, every terminal in the facility flickered and displayed the same word, convergence. Viral stared in horror. That's impossible. That's the central fail-safe trigger. No, I whispered. That's the end of the lock. The planet shuddered, not from weapons, but from awareness. Carrick's and Lyra had synced with the data world, and together, they were extracting everything the Council thought buried. Not just information, but influence. Backdoors built into Council systems across the galaxy. Lyra's touch had awakened a dormant protocol planted by the first Earth engineers who helped build the data world's original frame, before they were replaced by Scythrine mind programmers. The Council hadn't erased our legacy. They'd built it on top of us. This world will not survive the transfer, Carrick's warned. But we now have what we came for. We left Caltrus Vale as it began to collapse, its roots shriveling and screaming through subspace channels. 1,000 Council networks blinked out one by one. Entire systems went dark. We didn't just take their secrets. We took their power. And Virot-san? She stayed behind. Watching the world, she helped build die in real time. Maybe that was her penance. Now the galaxy knows. The myth of humanity's fall is cracking. And for the first time in 100 years, the universe is listening. We thought we were alone in the silence. Turns out, the silence had been listening. The Oort Vale is where the stars begin to forget you. It's beyond mapped territory, beyond even the reach of Council drift lanes. A place older than names. That's where we gathered what was left of humanity's scattered fleets. Smugglers, scientists, engineers, war-fractured veterans. The unwanted. But they came, not out of loyalty, not out of hope. They came because the signal reached them. The signal sent from Caltrus Vale before it burned, broadcasted through ancient relays, encrypted in forgotten tongues, echoed through deep time harmonics only humans still remember how to read. Carrick's called it the Ascendant Summons. It said, "Come and become more, or remain and be forgotten." The fleet we formed in the Ort Vale was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Half were retrofitted Council vessels, stolen and rewired with reverse-engineered Terran tech. Others were the originals, arcs, sleeper ships, black-site experiments long thought lost. And then there were the hybrids, newborn constructs shaped by Lyra's growing influence. She wasn't a child anymore. Not really. After Kaltra's veil, she barely spoke. Her body pulsed with radiant veins of light, her eyes no longer tracking motion but possibility. She was becoming the bridge between machine and flesh, mind and matter. Even Carrick spoke of her now with something resembling reverence. She is not a weapon. She is a threshold. We planned our next move, an open strike on the Council's communication core in Sector Helios, where they controlled subspace routing, quantum relay indexing, and knowledge curation across the entire galaxy. Strike it down, and everyone would hear us. But the night before we launched, something else answered. It came as a gravitational ripple first, barely a whisper in the deep, but then came the voice. No comms, no transmission. Just direct consciousness intrusion, like an ancient tide rising in the mind. You are early. It wasn't Council. It wasn't AI. It was old. Carrick's disengaged instantly, retreating into inner encryption loops. Lyra collapsed to her knees. Her glow dimmed. I felt it too, like someone reaching into my bloodline, pulling out the memories of every ancestor who had ever feared the dark. We tracked the signal's origin to a black region outside map time coordinates. A place the Council had labeled void space theta 0. No traffic, no colonies. Just a warning, do not observe. So, of course, we went. We found a derelict moon orbiting a false star, a construct so ancient even Carrick couldn't read its language. It wasn't made of matter as we understood it. It bent logic. It unfolded when you looked directly at it, like it was only partially real. And inside, vaults, thousands of them, each one humming with restrained power. Not energy, thought. We opened one, and it woke up. A being emerged, not with a body, but as a shadow inside our minds. It called itself Viren, an echo of the first civilization that ever touched the stars. Not Council, not human, precursor. They had once watched the galaxy rise, then fall, then rise again. Viren showed us glimpses, flashes of empires built from suns, species that walked inside black holes, civilizations that sang in radiation. And always, the pattern was the same. They expand, they oppress, they consume, then they fear what comes next. So they erase it. Sound familiar? Viren had watched the Council do it to others. They watched it happen to us. But this time, something had changed. This time we fought back. You are the variable, Viren said. The one the equation could not normalize. I asked what it wanted. Its answer? To witness what you become. And then it did something no Council power, no AI, no ancient god thing had ever done. It bowed, in a ripple of dark matter, like the void itself acknowledging that something new had entered the game. We left that moon altered, not just with knowledge, with access. Viren had gifted us command over precursor conduits, fast transit pathways buried inside space-time, unseen by physics as the Council understood it. With them, we could be anywhere, instantly. And the first place we went, Helios Sector. The Council's communication core didn't stand a chance. Their defense grid blinked out before they even knew we'd arrived. Their command tower shattered in a single quantum pulse. Their fleet stood down not from fear, but from awe. We didn't transmit a threat. We transmitted a vision of humanity not broken and exiled, but risen, of a girl who had become the will of our evolution, of a machine who remembered our promise, of a people who did not obey but ascended. Galaxies don't scream when they collapse. They crack, quietly, like ice breaking under too much pressure. That was a sound echoing across the Council's core worlds after the fall of Helios Sector. We didn't just destroy their communication core. We unplugged their narrative, their control of knowledge, perception, language, all of it unraveled in a matter of days. Entire sectors suddenly remembered truths they'd been conditioned to forget. History reappeared in raw, unfiltered form. Earth's true fate, the Council's deception, our resistance. And then came the ripple effect. The Elzari fold seceded first. Their leader, a war-worn matriarch named Vothlan, publicly denounced the Council, citing the human precedent. As proof the Galactic Accord was never about harmony, only control. Soon after, the Goroth clans declared neutrality, disabling their Council-linked relay stations and calling for an independent future shaped by merit, not memory. It was working. We were working. But with every fracture came chaos. Skirmishes erupted. Trade routes turned to ambush corridors. Planetary economies destabilized. The vacuum of power begged for one thing: a new order. And Lyra was ready to give it. She stood atop the bridge of the Ashen Wake as it hovered in low orbit over the shattered moons of Council Prime. Her voice echoed across hundreds of open channels, bounced off the frequencies of every fractured nation-state, every rebellious fleet, every species now listening. You feared what humanity would become. You tried to halt our evolution, but we do not stop. We ascend. This galaxy is no longer yours to control. It belongs to those who endure. It belongs to us. We offer one future, a union led by humanity, forged in truth, or no future at all. It wasn't a speech. It was a threshold. The Council tried to respond with politics. The remaining triarchs held emergency sessions, proposed peace terms, offered Lyra a seat at their unified tribunal. Her response was broadcast publicly. We do not want your seats. We want the stars. I watched the systems fell in line, one by one, some through choice, others through fear, but many through something deeper, recognition, that humanity had become something else, something impossible to cage, predict, or dismiss. We weren't the same species that joined the Council a century ago. We were ascendants now, living fusion of flesh, machine, memory, and momentum, carriers of a trauma so vast it had rewired our destiny. Carrots became more than an AI. It became infrastructure, not as a ruler, but as a guardian of transparency. It offered every species, human or not, full access to historical archives, protected from manipulation. Information was no longer filtered. Truth became currency, knowledge, power. And Lyra? She became something beyond leadership. She became symbol. Her body existed. Her voice moved across networks. But her presence, her influence, it reshaped cultures. Some called her a goddess, others a singularity. We simply called her what she had always been, the spark they failed to smother. But not everyone bent the knee. In the shadow of this new union, resistance festered. Exiled council generals, species who thrived under the old order, rogue AIs built in secret before the Accord even formed. They began to gather, forming a phantom alliance known only as the Silence Beyond. They spoke of purity, of returning to the natural chain, of removing humanity before it could overwrite creation. And we knew they wouldn't wait long to strike. On the outer edges of Union space, colonies began disappearing. Silent worlds, burned outposts, entire moons glassed by weapons not seen since the Dark Spiral Wars. Then came a message, scrambled and bleeding through static, from a Union listening post near Nebula Grynex. They're not just rebels. They're waking something older, something buried beneath us all. And then silence. So we gathered the fleet again. Not just humans, not just allies, but believers. Species who had nothing left to lose. AIs who chose free will over legacy. Colonies built in exile, now standing proud as beacons. The union of the Ascended now stretched across 200 systems. And our flagship? No longer the Ashen Wake. It was Lyra herself. No longer just a girl, nor even flesh. She had merged with Carrix and the core conduits of precursor origin. She was interface and influence, mind and command in perfect synchrony. She didn't pilot our ships. She was our fleet, and her final declaration, before we launched into the abyss? They feared we would surpass them. They were right. The void opened like a wound. We expected resistance. Fleets. Old Council warships retrofitted with rogue AI. Sabotage, maybe, but not this. Not it. They called it Itherian, but that name came from fractured precursor texts, scrawled in neural ink across the cortexes of extinct species. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't a god. It was a remnant, a thing older than biology, older than decay, a weapon forged not to destroy, but to end remembering. The silence beyond had unearthed it, woken it, bound it in hatred, and now they were pointing it at us. It arrived like an eclipse, blotting the system's sun, with a tendril mass the size of Jupiter. Ships fell without firing a shot, ripped into abstract geometries, folded in on dimensions no species could perceive. Their screams never left the bridge. The fleet wavered. Even Carrick stuttered. Construct breaching nonlinear reality. Warning. Observation corruption. Memory integrity at risk. But Lyra didn't falter. She stood in the heart of our mind-link grid. Her eyes closed, her body no longer just human nor machine. Her voice, amplified through every ship, every soldier, every AI, spoke across fear. They called us aberrations. Now we show them what they feared most, a species that refused to break. We struck, not with brute force, not with ancient weapons. We struck with understanding. Lyra reached into the precursor conduits gifted by Viren, into the knowledge web buried beneath the skin of the galaxy. She rewrote our physics, temporarily detuning our ships for Nitherian's collapse field. We existed just slightly askew, long enough to maneuver. Then she turned inward, to us, to humanity, to every survivor across every exile colony, every outlaw ship, every scattered mind that still believed in a future. "Lend me your will," she said. And we did. The final attack wasn't a missile or a beam. It was consensus. Millions of human minds, linked through the ascendant neural lattice, willingly focused on one unshakable thought. We belong here. The universe, the very laws Nitherian sought to unravel, listened. Reality reasserted itself. And Nitherian screamed. It didn't die. It ceased, unwritten from time by the very species it was sent to erase. And in its place, silence. True silence. Not fear, not defeat, but completion. When it was over, our fleet hovered in stillness over a reborn system. The stars blinked steady again, and across the galaxy, the remaining resistance shattered. The silence beyond fractured. Their fleets fled. Their dogma burned in public memory. Humanity had not just survived. We had rewritten the end. The final act was not vengeance. It was vision. Lyra addressed the galaxy one last time, not with conquest, but invitation. We will not repeat your mistakes. We will not become the hands that choke the future. But we will lead, because we've seen what happens when no one does. The union of the Ascended was ratified on the edge of the Ort Vale. Not a throne, a council of survivors. Species once silenced, now heard. Cultures once erased, now revived. Knowledge shared, not controlled. And in the center of it all, us, humans. Not because we were perfect, but because we were proof. That evolution doesn't belong to the comfortable. It belongs to the broken who rebuild themselves. They betrayed us, but in doing so, they gave us something they could never reclaim. Clarity. I look out now from the bridge of the Eidolon Eternal, our newest ship, built from precursor alloys and encoded starlight. Lyra exists now as both code and myth, spread across our networks like a flame that never dies. The galaxy watches us with new eyes, some in awe, some in fear, but all in respect, because we are no longer begging for entry. We are the next gate. The universe turned its back on us. Now we lead it forward, alone if we must, together if they dare.